come in various forms, right? One of the ones I love using is the Jeff's map. Jeff has created these amazing maps for Algonquin Park and other places. They're very, very detailed with all kinds of information on them, and they're just great maps to use. This is one for the Frost Center area, which is where I live, and another one for Haliburton. Now this is just a topographic map for Haliburton itself. The compasses I use, I normally use a plate compass. This one here, made by Sunto. This compass is really good. I've had this one up here. That compass there, I've had that that's made by Recto, which is also a really good compass. I've had this compass for probably the better part of 30 years. And it keeps on going. It's just great. The other compass that you see here is called a Lensata compass, or a engineer compass. That's kind of a specialized unit. It's really, really great for pinpointing landmarks. I mean, it's awesome for that. But not quite so great for map work. I mean, you can definitely use it for map work, no problem. Just, it's not quite as easy. Okay, all maps have grid lines. These grid lines are known as grid north. Right? It's the way the map makers make the map. So the grid lines are here. You can see them here. These grid lines are not magnetic north. On all maps it'll have a delineation as to where magnetic north is in relation to grid north. So here, where I am, in my neck of the woods, I am westerly. Okay, what that means is that magnetic north is 11 degrees 4 or 5 minutes west of grid north. When you see this, westerly, you add your bearing. Easterly, if that says easterly, that means that red area would be on the other side. That means that you're going to subtract. All maps are the same. They all have the same thing. For example, this map here. Now this map here is my is a Haliburton map, okay? And this map shows you grid north, then it shows you also true north. Right? So that's true north, grid north, and then it shows you magnetic north. And according to this map, magnetic north, given this line here, is actually 13 degrees 9 minutes of grid north on this particular map. Alright? Okay, this is Jeff's maps. Using Jeff's maps central area of Algonquin. Right? Jeff maps are amazing. They're great. Awesome maps. It's the only map I'll carry with me in Algonquin. Friends of Algonquin, the Friends of Algonquin Park, they also produce a really nice map. I'll carry that also, but the Jeff's maps is the one I refer to the most. Why? Because Jeff has lined out these nice little yellow lines. Now these things are cool. Between point and point, which I'm not sure if you can see it on this camera, but between point and point, he actually has time and distance. That is cool. And because then you can plan your trip, you know, within reason. You can plan your trip to a fairly accurate degree, because believe it or not, these lakes look tiny. No, when you're moving from here to here, that's about an hour's paddle, if not more. All right, so yeah, it's a long, that's an hour of your day right here for sure. So, or more, depending on how you paddle and depending on wind and etc., etc. I mean, when we came out onto Phillips Lake, which is over here, when we came out onto Phillips Lake, I mean, the wind was pushing against us so hard, and it wanted to plant us right back on the spot that we started from. We had to, our paddle shafts were bending in that wind. I mean, literally bending. We were pulling so hard on those paddles just to get to a point of land where we wanted to camp. But regardless, the point being is, using these maps, if there's anything I can say about this particular map that is at all negative, and there's no negative about it, is that the grid lines, which are here, are faint, right? As a map and compass guy, I like these to be a little bolder, and I'll explain why in a moment. You have come out onto Parks Bay. It's getting dark. You have scheduled yourself to be on Lake Lemire for the night. In fact, you've got the following day too off. In other words, you're not paddling. You're just going to be hanging out on Lake Lemire. Beautiful. Nice day of rest, right? So you want to make it there. But you know you're only at this point and it's already getting dark. You're going to be pushing across this lake after dark. Smart? No. Fun? Yeah. So what you have to do is figure out the bearing between here and this portage point, which you will not be able to see anything on this lake at nighttime. You can't see anything. There's no ambient light unless there's a good moon out. So here's what we do. Using a map and a compass, and let's say you're sitting here, you're going to line on a compass. You have this arrow here, which is your direction arrow. This is what we call the house. The needle sits in the house. When you're using a map and compass and you're not worried about magnetics, you don't use that needle, okay? Only out in the field do you use that needle. The lines underneath this bezel, they line up with your grid north. Okay, so what you want to do is you put your direction of travel. I always use the edge of my compass for my direction of travel. The edge of the compass, directional travel. You spin the bezel so that those red lines line up with your grid north. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, that's done. Now that's about as accurate as I'm going to get it. Yep, that's about as accurate as I'm going to get it. Now what you want to do is from here, now you're going to read your bearing off of the bezel here. Remember, direction of travel, bearing here. Right? So that bearing actually works out to a clean 230 degrees. 230 degrees. Now, having said that, if you're just using the map and you're using grid north, you must remember this. This is important, right? You have to remember that grid north is different than magnetic north. In my particular part of the woods, which is Algonquin, we're looking at a difference of about 12.78 degrees. All right, that's westerly, 12.78 degrees. So let's call it 13 for all intents and purposes. All right. So what you want to do is take your 230 degrees. All right, 230 degrees, and add your 13 to that. Okay, so you add 13 to 230. That's 243 degrees. When you're out in the field, you take your compass, you set this to 243 degrees, you put the needle in the house, and you're good to go. Another way to use a map is to orient it to north. We've already established that these grid lines are 13 degrees off of magnetic north westerly. That means it's an addition, right? So if you want to, and that will be delineated on every single map that you purchase. Your deviations are going to be all here, okay? So if you want to align the map to magnetic north, let's check our calculations, all right? I said 243 degrees from that campsite to the portage point. It's dark out. We can't see anything. We got our headlights on and we're looking at our compass and we're thinking, yeah, we're hoping it's there, right? Well, you better make sure it's there. So we've already established that is a grid line. We also know that the grid line is approximately 13 degrees off Now 13 is pretty tough to do on these little guys, but anyway, let's do approximately 13 degrees. So 13 degrees, did you see what I did? So you turn your bezel, so there's north, 10 degrees, 11, 12, I did in between the, well, roughly in between, that's 20 degrees here. So I just turned it so that my direction arrow is lined up with 13 degrees. Now, line up the edge of your compass with one of these grid lines, and quite simply, all you do now, so the edge of the compass is lined up with the grid line, which we know is 13 degrees off of magnetic north. You just simply turn your compass until the needle sits in the house. Alright, so let's do it. So we're going to turn the compass till the needle sits in the house. There we go. She's lined up. That is it. Now let me push this out here so we can see just exactly what we're doing here. There we go. Alright, so the needle is now in the house. That means that this map is now oriented to real world. So this is exactly how Hogan's Lake in Algonquin Park is in relation to north. Alright, that's exactly how it is, magnetic north. Now let's check that bearing. Again, let's do this. The map is now aligned to magnetic north. That is our portage trail here, and that's the campsite that we're sitting on trying to figure out where the heck we are, right? Portage trail, campsite. We are going to travel through the lake at nighttime to get to that portage trail. What is our bearing? Here we go. Since we're lined up to magnetic north, now the needle comes into play. We turn the bezel now till the needle sits in the house. Alright? The needle is now in the house. What do we read here? Direction of travel. This is your degrees. 243 degrees right there. Alright? Needle's in the house. That's how you do it. So you're sitting on this point of land. You set your compass to 243. Doesn't matter what compass you have. Just set her to 243 degrees and you are done. All you have to do then is hold the compass in your hand, and as long as your bow of your canoe is pointed 243 degrees, you are going to hit that portage trail. Okay, what we got to do now is look for a campsite, right? And set up. We're tired, man. Oh my God, we're tired.
We left at 8 in the morning and stayed at night.
Yeah, it's 12 hours.